So you've said before that you think a megatall structure like the Shanghai Tower could only really be successful in a city like Shanghai, a really dense, a huge city. But we see a lot of very tall projects going on in China now in second and third tier cities, smaller cities. Do you think that that's still appropriate, or how should the development in those smaller cities use tall buildings to their advantage, instead of just as symbols that they're on the map?
Yes, just as what you said, the high buildings will always be the landmark of a city. But I think as we are building the landmark building in one places, you need to take the following factors into consideration. First of all, the ROI on the investment. And then, do you really have a good management group to help to operate this place? And more importantly, for the second tier and third tier city, do we have a market that can truly satisfy your need? For example, we know that by building the kind of super high buildings, it is always a huge investment. So you need to guarantee that in the near future, when this building being completed, its rental fees and the cost would help you to profitable. Which means that in the second tier cities or the third tier cities, you will need to find the market to support your investment. So as what I said, in Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, these kind of first tier cities, we do have the people and the market to support the development and the operation of the super high buildings after it's been completed. And for sure, some of the second tier cities, if its economy looks quite well, if the local development also goes good, then in the CBD areas or in the downtown area, it is also okay for us to have the skyscrapers. But in other second tier cities, I do suggest people to take a very prudent attitude. Don't take the risk.
In Shanghai, in the Shanghai Tower, one of the most notable aspects of the design is atria throughout the building. So public spaces or open spaces, dozens of stories up in the air. How have those spaces been used since the building opened? Have you been surprised by any of the ways that people are using these spaces? Because it's not common for a building of that height to have such open space at those heights.
Yes, thank you for asking this question. And I say that people like using the public spaces very much in the Shanghai Tower, especially in the noon and in the after the work. People would like to sit in the public spaces and talk to each other. And more importantly, you know that some of the tenants, they really surprised us. On the 37th floor, they introduced a museum that is an air up to 170 meters above the ground. And in that museum, it is actually a mimic of the private garden in Suzhou. And in that private garden, it used the very beautiful stones to build the pavilion, and we also introduced the 4 trees with 600 years history of getting into the air. So people can just sit there and look like the vivid Suzhou garden in traditional Chinese architecture. And more importantly, you know that we named that garden named Half-Moon Garden because it only covers an area of around 300 square meters. So you know that our tenants is really innovative. They did a lot of very good job over the public spaces, which really surprised us.
So I think the Shanghai Tower is a great example of a megatall building that's both a symbol and a usable, desirable space. I guess time will tell how that plays out, over a longer time period. But how should new megatall projects balance that need to be a symbol and a landmark and also be a functioning, valuable building?
You know that the society has been progressed, which is totally different from 10 to 20 years ago. Probably 20 years ago, people are quite practical. We want to turn every square into money. But nowadays, for young people, especially those young people born after 1980s, 1990s, or even 2000, they are the mainstream consumers. Their life quality no longer based on the basic requirement of asking a high building to be a livable place or a shopping mall or a working place. They are no longer focused only on the material side. They will also need to have some spiritual pursuit, or they want to be part of the culture of that building. So you know that for the high buildings, physically, there will always be taller buildings than ours. So that's why we are trying to make our building as a place with a cultural connotation, with a concept of environmental protection, and at the same time we give focus on cultivating a kind of lifestyle. That's why we proposed we are going to increase more public spaces and to give people a sense of participation in this process. Because I think only by doing so, we can really bring the building to life. Probably someone will doubt, if you really spare too much spaces for the public spaces, then the rental fees won't be very high and you can't get too much revenue. But I think this kind of saying is wrong, because if you really provide people a sense of participation, it will actually help you to increase the value of your building. And this kind of value could not be calculated by money.